Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and we are here with another episode of Fun Ideas Podcast. And today, thanks to the wonderful Charles F. Rosenay, he has put me in touch with Godfrey Townsend, who is here today to talk about his work with the Turtles and other groups, and his many years as a guitarist. So how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Where do you hail from? Is it New York?
Yeah, I was born in New York in Manhattan, and I live in Brooklyn, Queens area of New York now. And right now, it's in a place called Glendale in Queens. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in Oregon, so if you're wondering where I'm at.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Where at? Where at?
Excuse me. Springfield, Eugene area. So if
Oh,
you're a good dart player and you throw it right in the center of the state, that's where I'm at. So.
Nice. We had some good friends up in Eugene, and they all organized us to do a concert with Alan Parsons up there years ago, with an orchestra.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I usually start off with this question, then we'll just kind of go about various aspects of your career. Do you want to talk about the Turtles because that's kind of the emphasis, but tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became a guitarist and how you affiliated yourself with, say, Alan Parsons and a few others, John Entwistle and people like that.
Obviously it was a long road from becoming a guitarist, which was like at 9 years old. And I started playing piano first, just because it was an instrument that was laying around in my uncle's home or whatever, and I was able, and some of my parents' friends have pianos in their homes, and I would just go and bang around on it and be able to, by ear, pick out melodies of songs or whatever by ear. And eventually my uncle noticed that and told my mom, hey, he's got a pretty good ear. You should, when you get back home to the States or whatever, I was visiting over in Europe, you should get a piano and give him lessons, get him lessons, because he's got a pretty good ear for it. So, piano is basically the easiest instrument you can learn, because you don't have to know a technique of how to hold a bow or how to fret something or hold something on your neck or blow into a thing and reeds, and your lips have to be strong and for to blow trumpets. And piano, you just kind of hit it and it's instant sound.
True. Yeah.
It is actually considered a percussion instrument because you have to hit it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing piano, but then of course, the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and that changed everything.
Right.
And everybody wanted to play guitar and be in a band and whatever. So I started picking up the guitar, and I taught myself. Really, I went for lessons for about a month, but then I taught myself. Basically with these fake books that we used to get. They were just these bootleg books with all the pop songs, the hit songs of the day were photostated or whatever, and then all put into one book and sold to wedding bands for $5 or something like that, which is why they called it a fake book, because wedding musicians could fake their way through any song with that book in front of them.
Now, when you did that, is that just with general chords, or did you
Yes.
were you also able to learn technique from that?
But that's the thing. See, in a lot of the sheet music for the songs, there was the little chord charts where it shows you where to put your finger to play an E chord or an A7 or whatever.
Right.
And that's how I learned to play chords and strum along with the songs. Mm-hmm. But I also had that ear for picking up, he does a little riff there, and then I would figure out that riff on my own. So I kind of became the lead guitar player in the band quickly, because the other guy, who was a better rhythm guitarist, who had been taking lessons for probably a year longer than I did, couldn't do that. So, and we were starting to learn some pretty happening stuff, because now by now it was like 10 or 11 years old. It was the Monkees were out, and you were starting to listen to some other stuff that was a little harder,
Right.
So I picked up playing lead myself, and really later on in high school, I was listening to like Live Cream, live Cream albums where they take a 2 or 3 minute song like I'm So Glad, and they stretch it
Right.
out to 12 minutes of improvisation and jamming.
Mhm.
And Clapton is playing every riff he knows, and you
Right.
can just learn them all, and in the old days it was harder because you were there with a record needle, taking it on and off the record and putting it back in the same place to hear it again and hear it again and hear it again. And
Yeah.
train your ear, so my ear has been trained to hear every little nuance of things from doing that.
Very cool.
So, I mean, eventually I became the lead guitarist of whatever band that I was forming in grammar school or early high school days or whatever,
Mhm.
So, and I knew how to play piano as well, see? So, and I started singing, of course. So it gives you a little bit more of you're more of an asset to a band, I guess, if you can play more than one instrument and sing as well,
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So how did this lead to, I mean, did you had your own bands at first, I assume, and then
Yeah,
graduated into playing with others? Is that how that
yeah.
worked?
Well, what happened was we would form cover bands, where we would just play copy material and play high school dances and things like that, or play the auditorium and in the local grammar school or high school and stuff like that, or parties and block parties and things like that. And eventually we decided to start writing our own original stuff, and that was the end of high school, 74, 75,
Okay.
1974, 75. I was like 18 years old or something like that, and we started playing at a place in my area called the Coventry. And it was a club. It was like a professional rock club where bands like Kiss got their start.
Mhm.
The New York Dolls used to play there, bands like that in the early days. Billy Squire with his first band Piper used to play there. Elephant's Memory used to play there, bands like that. Johnny Thunders. So we started playing the Coventry, and Gene Simmons from Kiss saw us there and was interested in our band, and I had a talk with him after the gig, and we sent a demo in, and of course we got passed on or whatever.
Mhm.
The demo didn't sound as good as we did live. You know what I mean? The
Right.
recording was not as good as we sounded live. So many years of that, and then you kind of just start playing in cover bands, and so you get gigs and you get paid, and you're making an extra living besides whatever day job you have doing that. And then I started going into Manhattan after work and sitting in at places like the China Club, which is, a famous celebrity hangout.
Mhm.
So they would have a Wednesday night, what they call the Pro Jam, where they had a good bunch of musicians on stage who kind of knew a lot of songs and could play anything but anybody for the most part. And whoever was in the audience that was a celebrity, they would get them up and they would sit in, and someone would be taking pictures, and it would be a good old time for everybody. So I started going down to that.
Mhm. Is
And
that kind of like an open mic night, kind of, or no?
yeah, like an open jam. Like,
Okay.
of course, yeah. You want to come up and sing a song? You want to come up and play guitar on something, whatever. So I started. I knew some of the people who kind of hung out there in a way. I was getting to know them, and of course, as my face got recognized and my name got remembered, and oh yeah, this guy knows a lot of tunes. Get him up, or whatever. And then it would be like, oh well, Mick Jones from Foreigner is here tonight, and hey, do you know any Foreigner? Yeah, sure I do. Come on up and play with Mick Jones. Like that kind of stuff went on a lot. And eventually, John Entwistle from The Who came down after The Who. It was actually Roger Daltrey was doing a show at Carnegie Hall with Michael Kamen and an orchestra. And it was a celebration of, it was Pete Townsend's 50th birthday or something. And they were doing this Daltrey Sings Townsend special show, and Entwistle was there with Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, and Linda Perry and Sinead O'Connor was there, and all kinds of guests. And he came over to the China Club after that. And I was already in the house band there doing the pro jam. I was running the pro jam.
Right.
And it was my job to get them up. And I knew all that Who stuff. And we played for 2-3 hours straight with those guys.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. And about a year later, I was already had gotten another gig, a professional gig out in Laughlin in Nevada at the Flamingo Hilton Casino out there. It was a show called the Jukebox Giants, and I was in a backing band with some of the other guys from Beatlemania, and we were backing up Joey Mullins from Badfinger and Mitch Ryder and Spencer Davis and Tiny Tim and all these different people, and we were the band that backed them all up. While I was out there, I got a call that John Entwistle wants to put a solo band together, and he wants me to come and play guitar for him. And we were going to have this other guy singing, but he wanted too much money. So then the next phone call to me was, hey, can you sing this stuff too? And I said, oh yeah, I've been singing that stuff since I was 13 years old, and I was the lead singer and lead guitarist for the John Entwistle band.
Wow.
From 1995 until he passed away in 2002.
Did you tour everywhere with him, or just the New York
We
area?
only did the States and Canada.
Okay.
The United States and Canada. I guess it was too cost effective. It was too expensive to go overseas with it or whatever. You know what I mean? We never even played in England, and it's kind of the way things are that English artists they're not well received in England, but if they come here to the States, or if they go to Europe, or they go to Japan, forget about it, So yeah, so we really only ever played. We did maybe a half dozen tours in the United States and Canada, and one of the tours he was asked to go on was a thing called A Walk Down Abbey Road, and it was like a specialty package tour that they were putting together with John Entwistle, Ann Wilson from Heart, Todd Rundgren, and Alan Parsons. And it was going to be a tribute to the Beatles. So each artist would do a few of their own hit songs and then a few Beatle covers or renditions. And I went on that tour with John, basically to sing his Who stuff with him. But I became the musical director for it because every few minutes at rehearsals, someone like Todd would be coming over going, hey, what's that chord? And Lady Madonna or, whatever. And I knew them all. So they made me the musical director. And that same tour company is the same production company that did Hippie Fest, where the Turtles started, and then the Happy Together tour, which I've been on for the last 10 years as the musical director. So it's a stepping stone that leads to a clique of, like a circuit of things, like a network of gigs.
Right. I think I did see it. I yeah, the Abbey Road one, because I saw Entwistle. Well, I saw the Who first, and then I saw Entwistle when he was part of Ringo's all-star band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't participate in that, right?
No, that was right before he asked me to play in his solo band.
Okay, and then the next time, I had forgotten that it was called A Walk Down Abbey Road. I just remember it had Todd Rundgren and it had John Entwistle and a few others. I didn't remember, but the list sounds familiar. I think it was Ann Wilson, so I'm sure it was. So we're talking, I was in California then, so we're talking Saratoga, California. So
2001.
Yeah, yep. And I just have a funny story that has nothing to do with Entwistle, but it has to do with Todd Rundgren. On Ringo's band, he always says, I always want everyone to play their hits. And Rundgren apparently didn't want to play Hello, It's Me and stuff like that. And Ringo was like, okay, fine. And so he did other things like Black Mariah, which is pretty obscure. Really? And he did Bang on the Drum All Day, which wasn't a big hit, but at least it fits in with the theme of Ringo, drumming and stuff. But anyway, when I saw the Walk Down Abbey Road, Rundgren did Hello, It's Me. And I said, now he does it. That's funny.
I don't do it. Yeah. He actually used to do Open My Eyes. Yeah. He did Open My Eyes, which was a Nas song, right? The earlier band he had.
Right.
before he went solo. So we used to do Open My Eyes, Hello, It's Me, and Bang the Drum all day.
Yeah. And so for Entwistle, I think, didn't he do Boris the Spider and maybe My
Yeah.
Wife? I don't remember.
Probably, yeah, we did a few. We did The Real Me, because that song is basically a bass solo, and he wanted to show off a bit. So every night I would do The Real Me with him, and probably, I don't know if we did My Wife or Boris. I don't really remember. I'd have to find a
Of course,
song.
he could have done Boris with Ringo. I'm getting it confused because
Yeah.
it's not that important. But I mean, you did have a long working relationship with him. Did you play like virtually everything on his solo performances, or did you kind of stick with his own stuff? Like,
no, you know what? Here's the thing. Okay, Entwistle was probably like the George Harrison of the Who. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was always competing with Roger and Pete for the limelight, So when he finally got to do his own band, he would, he used to say in so many words, I don't need to, blow Pete Townsend's horn anymore for him. He already blows it enough for himself or whatever.
Right.
So he would try to stick to mostly doing in the set. We would either do stuff that John wrote for the Who, like Boris the Spider, My Wife, Had Enough from the Who Are You album, things like that. Whatever stuff that he wrote, and then stuff from his own solo career. And as an added feature, the cover stuff that the Who did, like Summertime Blues, Young Man Blues, Shaking All Over, stuff like that, Of course, Summertime Blues was Eddie Cochran, Young Man Blues was Mose Allison, and Shaking All Over was Johnny Kidd and the Pirates or whatever. So any cover stuff that the Who ever did live, like all that stuff is probably on Live at Leeds or whatever, but that's the stuff we would do, So try to stay away from Pete Townsend as much as possible, except for The Real Me, which is a bass solo pretty much.
Like I know I just found this out because I was reading a little bit about Entwistle, doing research on you. Apparently he hated doing Magic Bus because it was just like one note over and over.
like the Bo Diddley groove, and it was just like over and over forever.
Even though it's a famous song, he was like, but I get it, for performing sake, you want to have something to do, It's very cool. So did you do that before Alan Parsons, or did Alan Parsons come after, or had that?
So that's what I mean about the stepping stone situation.
Okay.
I mean, it's like, so I got brought onto this tour with John Entwistle. That's where I met Alan Parsons. And then I got a gig with Alan Parsons. So this is how it worked out. The next summer, they wanted to do the tour again, the Walk Down Abbey Road tour, change it up a little bit. John was already scheduled to go out with the Who. He was already scheduled for that summer to go out there, so he wasn't going to be able to do the tour. So we got Jack Bruce to do it. Todd Rundgren stayed. Alan Parsons stayed. We brought Mark Farner and Christopher Cross out to replace Ann Wilson and whoever else. And so the second year I was musical director, and I went out there and I brought my drummer from my band out on the tour. And at the end of that tour, both Jack Bruce and Alan Parsons asked me if I wanted to play with them, or Jack actually had a couple of gigs booked for the fall and said, could you do them with me? And I went, sure. And he liked the way my drummer played. So he said, yeah, we'll do a thing. So we started playing with Jack, and then Parsons said, hey, could you put a band together for me of all American musicians or people that live here in the States? Because Alan lives in Santa Barbara, California. And he, was kind of scaling things down a bit. And it was not cost effective for him to have to fly musicians in from Europe to do one show or to do a weekend or something, so. So I said, oh yeah. And he respected my musicianship and my drummer's musicianship. And he said, if you can put me a band together with guys with your caliber of playing abilities, that would be great. And so we did. We got a keyboard player and we got a bass player. and all of us are lead singers. So we basically had a band. He brought a lead singer in. So we had a band of 6 lead vocalists, you know. So it was a great live sound, because in most situations, vocal harmonies are basically 3-part harmonies.
Right.
So what we would do is we would split them, and 2 people would take each harmony. So it would be like a stereo, like two times that 3-part harmony you're hearing, which is what they do in studio recordings a lot. They double things, and it makes it sound much lusher, you know.
Right.
Chorusy or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
We have a live DVD called Live in Madrid. Actually, it's called Eye to Eye, Live in Madrid, Alan Parsons live project. And if you watch that DVD, you can catch it on YouTube, some of it as well. If you watch that DVD, and the sound is so perfect that it looks like we're just lip syncing to a studio recording.
Wow.
And that's because we were all on like in-ear monitors. The stage volume was very controlled. Alan Parsons himself took the 48 tracks of digital audio and engineered it himself in his home, mixed.
Wow. Yeah.
This is the guy that engineered Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
So,
Right.
so it sounds like a record, or you know, or a CD or whatever.
Right. And he worked with the Beatles too at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. He did.
Yeah.
He did a lot of work with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I worked with Jack Bruce a lot, you know.
Right.
Did some recording with him. We played a bunch of gigs. He wound up coming on other tours after that. Walk Down Abbey Road. We started doing a thing called the Hippie Fest in 2006. We did that from 2006 to 2010, and it was my band of musicians, the guys that I put together for the Alan Parsons live project. That was the band for the Hippie Fest tour. That was the band for the Happy Together tours. And, you know.
So who was in Hippie Fest? Which were
Hippie Fest was more like 70s artists.
Okay.
So like one of the very first Hippie Fests, we had Chuck Negron from Three Dog Night.
Yeah.
We had you know, Mark Farner was on it. There was other bands there was a few bands that brought their whole band. So like whatever version of the Love and Spoonful that was out at that time, it's, you know, the drummer is singing lead, and Iron Butterfly and Vanilla Fudge, and maybe Blood, Sweat and Tears, and like all these different kind of 70s acts, you know, would be on Hippie Fest. Gary Wright, Rick Derringer, Dave Mason, guys like that, you know.
Cool.
And some of them would bring their band for the first tour or whatever, and they would hear us backing up someone else, and then go, damn, these guys sound good, but I'm not bringing my band next time. I'm just going to come, you know, whatever, and let them back me up or whatever. You know, the idea of it is to save money, first of all. Obviously, that's always the prime directive in touring for the producers. But it's also it also takes away that changeover time in between acts.
Right.
You don't got to be swapping out. Even if you have everything all set up already, you got to make sure this is working, that's working, and I'm plugging into that bass amp. Here's my drum kit on this riser that's going to come out. None of that. We're just there.
Yeah.
And the 2 singers or whoever, they come running out, they sing their 6 songs, they run off. Within a minute, there's another guy coming out to do, you know. So you can do 6 acts in 2 hours. You know? Okay,
I was going to ask, how long do you play then? If you're doing, like, if you're supporting every act in a bill.
Yeah. So everybody gets like 20 minutes.
Okay.
So on, like, say for instance, right now on Happy Together, there are 6 acts. Used to be 5. They figured let's stick another one in there. And so 6 acts times 20 minutes is 2 hours with a 20-minute intermission. So
so that's not too bad, because I know some bands that just play, like the Stones, let's say, they'll play straight through for 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, I do gigs like that all the time where my band would go and like, what time are we supposed to stop? I go, 1 a.m. Well, it's 2:30 in the morning now, or whatever. Like, okay, well, we can stop then, I guess,
Yeah.
Once you get going, you got to get the hook to get us off.
It just seems like when you have so many acts, it's like you're going to be playing for 6 hours, but you get little.
No, you see how that works, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's literally no changeover time. They're saying, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the show. And as they're going off the stage, the other guys are coming out and they're being in. We have a pre-recorded introduction done by Shadow Stevens. So as those guys are walking off, he's already going, our next artist is blah, blah, blah. And they were 10 gold records. And that's already happening. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the main thrust of what we're going to talk about is just the Turtles. But, were you with the Happy Together tour from the beginning, or did you come along the way, somewhere along the way?
Yeah, no, I was there from the beginning because it was a concept that came out of the Hippie Fest tour. So I was already in place with my band as the backup band for everybody that needs one, right? But then Happy Together was like, well, now we're going to just have whoever wants to come on the tour, they just come themselves, and you're the backup band for everybody, no matter what.
Okay.
So the first one was like Mark Lindsay from Paul Revere and the Raiders, Mickey Dolenz from Monkees, of course, Mark and Howard. Who else was on it? I forget.
I think you have the Grassroots,
and
Buckingham's Association.
Whatever, Yeah. So, we were basically the guys,
Okay.
Grassroots was Rob Grill, just the singer, and we just backed him up. Maybe he brought his guitar player as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I mean, it's like if they're normally instrumentalists and you're doing all the backing, do the people just sing the vocals then, and that's about it, pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Mark and Howard come out and they just sing, and we back them up.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, four lead singers backing them up. So we're covering all the vocals. The Cowsills. There's 3 of them. Yeah. And they're 3 unbelievable singers. They sound like 6 people singing.
Wow.
If you listen to some of the live stuff, you're looking to see who else is singing, because it sounds like more than 3 people.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So it was just a situation after Hippie Fest. These are the guys. Is that how it kind of came about?
They kind of brought, like, Mark and Howard had a band who weren't the Turtles, but they were guys that they had been playing with for a long time. As a matter of fact, I auditioned for them back in like 1982 or something like that. Okay. Back then, I had met their drummer was a guy named Joe Stefko. Right. Played with Meatloaf and Mick Ronson and people like that. And another guy named Chris Apostle was their keyboard player, and he worked at the China Club where I did the Pro Jam. So somehow or other, the word got around that, hey, our guitar player is leaving, and we need another guitar player. Would you like to audition for the band? And I went, sure, that would be great, And I knew them more as Flo and Eddie, or when they sang with Frank Zappa and the Mothers, because we used to listen to that stuff in high school every night, down somebody's basement, So Joe gave me a cassette with 4 songs to learn, and I took it home and learned it. I went down to a rehearsal space in Manhattan. Mark and Howard weren't there. It was just the band guys, and we played through it. I sang some vocals with them, and they said, sounds good to me. You're in. Mark and Howard will definitely approve, so you're in. A couple of days later, I got a phone call. I was in bed, and the message came in, and I was just listening to it on my answering machine, and it was Joe going, hey man, I'm really sorry to have to tell you, but our guitar player decided he doesn't want to leave the band. So,
Oh,
so you got the audition, but you didn't get it. Kind of a thing. And I can just remember laying there going, I'm not getting out of bed today. You know, and I was really depressed, you know.
Mhm.
And
So
my
this is like you're talking about the Turtles Flo and Eddie band, not the
yeah,
Happy
when they,
Together band.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
before, way before that.
Right.
And they were doing like, you know, a week at the Bottom Line between Christmas and New Year
Right.
that they used to do. And so my consolation prize was a pair of tickets to see them on New Year's Eve at the Bottom Line, you know. And I remember just being really depressed at that time about that. But you gotta, we don't recognize things when they happen to us. You know what I mean? We only
Right.
realize years later why that was meant to happen like that. Because,
Right.
I mean, chances are, had I gotten the audition and been in that band, I wouldn't have done the other things that I
Right.
got.
Yeah.
That took me, you know, really nice places, and then round full circle back to them again after
Right.
I've done all that stuff. So
And it is interesting, you know, that they have their separate band, and very rarely did they cross over because they had their East Coast band, which you were trying out for, and the West Coast band, and then there's the Happy Together band. You know, it was like three separate things going on. I don't know if they do the individual. I think nowadays they only do the Happy Together.
They haven't done, and see, so what happened then was that different guys came and went. You know, they had Joe Stefko on drums, they had Donnie Kisselbach on bass. Benji King was the keyboard player, and Benji King played in one of my cover bands years before. And even we had Greg Hawkes on keys.
Oh yeah, from the Cars, yeah.
Cars. Yeah. But so at one point, you know, the original guy who was going to leave, that I was going to take his gig, he finally left again. His name is Tristan. He's a great guitar player. He plays in like a Queen thing. Really, really good. Mark Martel, I think, is the singer that does the Freddie Mercury stuff. He sang the stuff for the movie, the Bohemian Rhapsody movie and stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And Tristan is an amazing player, and he's got the Brian May thing down. So he left to do that. Another guy named Joel Hextra came in and was playing guitar for them. And then he was on Hippie Fest with them, and then he left, and they asked me to join them. So I was the guy on Hippie Fest and Happy Together, and I was in the Turtles when they played gigs on the side. So we did a couple of years like that as well. It was me, Greg Hawkes, Donnie Kisselbach, and Joe Stefko backing up Howard and Mark. So I was an actual member of the Turtles as well for a while, or whatever you want to call them. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, during all those years, I've interviewed various players, usually in the West Coast band. Strangely enough, I think you're the first one that's I've actually interviewed from the East Coast band. But how did you interact with Mark and Howard? Did you work with them off stage, or just professionally on stage, or what did you do?
You know, when it was time to rehearse for the tours, like when we did the Happy Together tours and stuff like that, we would rehearse just maybe for a day or two, you know, and we'd have to rehearse all of the acts in 2 or 3 days time. So we'd split a day of rehearsal. All right, we'll do the Buckinghams in the morning, Grassroots in the afternoon, and then tomorrow we'll do the Turtles in the morning, and then Chuck Negron in the afternoon. And we would do it like that. And just in 2 or 3 days of rehearsing with these guys, we'd go out on a major tour of 50 shows for the summer. You know? And that was mostly what it was. I don't remember rehearsing a lot with the Turtles because I had to learn their whole show. So they basically gave me a live CD of them playing the Bears Den or something up in upstate New York or somewhere like that. And I had to learn that.
Right.
Learn this live version. That's the arrangements, that's the keys, learn that. So I really learned the Turtles songs through the eyes and ears of another guitar player who had taken it to another place. So, you know, my real thing is with my band, when we do Happy Together, that I tell my guys, yeah, we're going to get some live versions from these artists of their arrangements, and maybe the keys are different and whatever. But before you hear that or listen to that, you go back and you listen to the records.
The originals, yeah.
The original records with the friggin' Wrecking Crew guys that played on those records. And they were singles and they were hits because of what was on those records. So you learn that first, and then you can translate it into what they want us to do. And so many of these artists are so grateful for that, because they don't ever know what they're getting into if they have to go do a fly date with some pickup band, and they're going to rehearse for a half an hour at sound check with these guys, and it doesn't matter what it sounds like. They got to go and do the show, whatever. And it's like, okay, we'll get through this however, and you know, wing it. With us, Mark Lindsay said it in an interview on a tour bus one day. We heard him talking to a guy, and he goes, this is such an amazing experience for me, because it feels like I'm coming out on stage and singing with my master recordings playing.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good compliment. You know what I mean? Because like I said, we learn those records. So every part is covered. Pretty much every part is covered. We got a keyboard player who can play piano and organ and strings and horns and sing a harmony. You know, so he's got it all down. Yeah, yeah.
So for these various groups, you know, obviously the Turtles have been on the tour every year, and a lot of them have, like, as the association and grassroots, seemingly every year. So I mean, do you play the same set every year after year, or do you kind of change it up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, unless something is really not working. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then maybe we want to try another thing. Usually we pretty much rounded it out to, you know, your 3, 4, 5 biggest hits. Right. Because that's what it's about. That's what the tour is about. It's about playing the hit songs that people know you for, and playing them like the record. Yeah. Not your Christmas version or your shuffle version of something, or your, you know, reggae version. Right. You know, no one wants to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They want to come to the show, and when they're walking out the door at the end, they're going, "Ooh, he sounded just like his records," you know, or whatever. Yeah. And that's what you want, and that's been the success of it. Yeah, because I've heard on the Happy I've seen the Turtles, but it was never the Happy Together tour. Yeah. So they had a little opportunity to goof around more, I think, you know, then, you know, more than the Happy Together. It sounds like you just play the hits, and there's not too much between song cut up stuff too much. But you know, they kind of stretch it out. You know, Mark is always the one who's telling the other acts, you know, keep it short, keep it, you know, we're running late, you know, keep it under 20 minutes, whatever, you know, keep the talking to a minimum. And once he gets out there, it's like he's just walking around the stage going, I don't know where I am anymore, you know, whatever, doing it like his whole shtick. Right. And, you know, when Howard was doing it with us, Howard was kind of like the straight man, right, and Mark was the crazy clown fool guy, you know, whatever. And Howard hasn't been out with us for a couple of years. Right, know? I've heard that. We Charles and I interviewed Ron Dante. Yeah, and actually Ron said what you just said about the songs. I mean, Ron already knew certain songs like Happy Together anyway, and probably sang him in his solo shows for years anyway. But Mark Bowman said, go back to the original record, like you said, you know, sing it like that, you know, do it like that, you know. So, you know, that's as close as you're going to get to sounding like the real deal. You know what I mean? It's like two different voices. Howard's voice is very powerful. Yeah. I never realized that until I worked with them for years and just went, wow, he is just slamming it. Ron's got a great voice,
Mhm.
and he's a great musician. He's a producer. He produced Barry Manilow's
Right,
record.
right.
Ever. So it's a no-brainer for him to just learn these songs.
Yeah.
It's hard. The hardest part about it is remembering all the words.
Right.
For him. So, we're getting by because we have a good lead singer.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I always ask this though. I mean, it's like you worked with Howard all those years, and I know he's had his health problems. Is there ever a chance for him to come back, or is he basically retired and done? You don't know.
I got to tell you, just from doing the last couple of years of my life, I just turned 65.
Mhm.
Today is my birthday, actually. I just turned
Happy
60.
birthday.
Thank you. And, probably didn't really start. I started late in my career with success. Whatever kind of success I had didn't really start happening until the 90s,
Mhm.
So I was playing original music in a club, and Gene Simmons was coming to see me in 1975.
Hmm.
And I really didn't get anywhere till 1995. So 20 years later is when I started playing out in Laughlin with Joey Molland and
Mhm.
Mitch Ryder and Spencer Davis, and Entwistle was calling me to be in his band. So my career really started in 1995, I would say, my professional career.
Right.
So 25 years later, only 25 years later, I'm now we get hit with a pandemic,
Right.
and you're not touring.
Yeah.
Not touring. You're losing a whole year's worth of work.
Yeah.
And and at first it was like, and you have to stay home.
Yeah.
And at first that was like, really? You mean just like stay here and watch movies?
Yeah, just take a break. Yeah.
I can do that standing on my head, 3 months later, you're going, okay,
Yeah.
what are we doing here, folks? A year and a half later, you're going, I don't know if I can ever go out and tour again. It's so hard to
Oh
do.
man.
You're just, feeling like that, or that's how I was feeling. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
but you can't wait to get back to work and tour. And I went, actually, I like my house. I like it a lot. I got 70 guitars to play with and all
Right.
kinds of recording equipment and whatever. And I'm kind of enjoying this kind of semi-retirement situation here. But the bank account is going down, though. That's the only problem. So that's really, it made me realize how someone could, after doing it for 50 years,
Yeah.
I only was doing it for 25 years, but it made me realize how someone could, after 50 years of doing it, go, well, I mean, I've got a pretty hefty bank account from, whatever, my song royalties and whatever else, or performing royalties, or I've got a nice house. I'm kind of tired, whatever, because these guys are maybe 10 years older than me.
Right. Yeah.
And they've done it for 50 years. I'm in the Yardbirds as well.
Yeah.
Now I play with the Yardbirds, and the only original member is Jim McCarty, the drummer.
Oh, okay.
Who was there from 1963, and he's still there now in 2021. He's still there. He played with Clapton, Beck, Page, all those guys.
Right.
He was there the whole time. Him and Keith Relf, the singer, formed Renaissance.
Oh yeah.
After the Yardbirds, and then he went back and did the Yardbirds again with Chris Drea and whatever. Afterwards, and now I'm in that band, and so Jim is 78 years old.
Yeah.
He lives in France, in Nice, somewhere in a nice little countryside town. What's going to make him want to start flying on airplanes across the world and getting into tight vans and going and playing in clubs and whatever, and coming home with like some money or whatever, but still, I mean, the love of playing is the only thing that's going to do that.
I would say, and I mentioned the Stones, but I mean, that's a good example because they started playing again. There's
Why are
no
they-
real monetary reason that they need to play anymore. It has to be
other
they
than
love the
fact that they
crowds or
love it,
something.
right? Other than the fact that they love it, because
Yeah.
that's the thing. I've done 2 gigs, full band gigs, since I've been home from the tour. One of them was like a rained out one, so there was like 20 people, and then the other night was in a big beer hall, and there was over 1,000 people there.
Right.
And that feeling is an addictive thing. It's part of the addiction that we have to music, is that you put out some energy, and if people approve, they pour it back at you like 1,000-fold. You know what I mean? And then you get high off that, and it just makes you play better the next song you do or whatever. So there's that attraction.
Right. Now, is performance something that appeals to you? I mean, or is it just going through the motions? I'm playing Happy Together again or something.
No. I mean, that's the difference. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, still even doing Happy Together is fine, because let's say, for instance, the Happy Together tour as opposed to the Yardbirds tour. Happy Together tour, I hardly play a note of lead guitar on it. Yardbirds tour, that's all I do.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
every song is lead guitar playing. My fingers are killing me at the end of a Yardbirds gig, but that's what I live and breathe for, is for that. But the Happy Together tour is just as fulfilling for me, because those are songs that I grew up with, and they're a part of you.
Yeah.
I mean, even not even, but I really liked Gary Puckett's songs when I was a kid, listening to AM radio. They were playing all over the place. When you were on a roller coaster, they were coming through, stuff when you're in amusement parks and everywhere you went. And so those songs are like embedded in your DNA almost, So to get to be up on stage and playing those songs behind the guy, you're standing there playing Lady Willpower or Woman or Young Girl, and you're going, that's the guy right there. That's him right there. So it's a feeling of course it's a sense of accomplishment as well, like, wow, I used to listen to this stuff on the radio, and now I'm playing it with the guy. Somehow or other I got myself there, manifested my own destiny somehow.
So it's fun for you in that regard. I mean, it's not
fun.
Like, I've been with Gary Puckett for 30 years, whatever.
And the thing is, if we do 50 shows in a summer, like when we go out on a full tour, it's June, July, and August, and we'll do 50 to 60 shows. And every night it's the same songs.
Yeah.
And it's the same shtick between each song. You have to stand there and let the artist do his little, now he's going to do his little punchline. Boom. Yeah. Oh, tonight they really went for it. Oh, tonight they were really like a painting. They were like an oil painting out there, the audience. And that's the way we kind of rate the shows, how the audience's reaction is to it. Right. We're putting out, but the more they put out, the more we put out. It's only a natural reaction. You know what I mean? So
well, even as a fan, like I've seen the Monkees a few times. You mentioned Mickey Dolenz, he has like the same jokes, as it were, but they're still fun, even as a fan. Even if he's going to say the colors, if he does Randy Scott's Skid, or if he says, I used to sing this before Shrek, if he's going to sing I'm a Believer,
Exactly.
It's like he said this over and over, but you kind of expect him and want him to say that.
It's almost like if you look closely, you can see the band standing behind him, like mouthing all the stick with him. Because we're like, and that's the cue to do, to start, Daydream Believer or whatever. We did a little tribute to Davy when Davy passed away. We did Daydream Believer and a little bit me, a little bit you. But we did Pleasant Valley Sunday with Mickey. I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, of course. I'm a Believer, Last Train to Clarksville. She, which was one of my favorite Monkey songs. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, wow, I'm playing Stepping Stone with Mickey Dolenz, and that was like probably one of the very first songs I learned how to play
Yeah.
on guitar, you know.
Yeah. And it is a pretty simplistic song. It's a garage band specialty, but it's still a great song. Yeah.
I can remember my dad with the, Webcore reel to reel. We used to record the family because he sang, my mom sang and played piano, and he'd say, "Hey, Goff, you want to come and do your Stepping Stone song, or whatever." And I would do it on the reel to reel. I have a recording of me singing it like when I'm, whatever, 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting aspect. I was even talking to someone tonight about that, about how, yeah, I mean, look, I'm friends with this guy, I'm friends with that guy. People are wishing me happy birthday on Facebook and saying so many nice things about me and stuff. And these are people like that we used to look at in Circus Magazine. And now it's like we stepped into the pages of Circus Magazine, and they're part of our people that surround us, or whatever, And so it's an amazing feeling of accomplishment, put it that way. And it's karma.
Yeah.
You have to have some luck in this world, right? Perseverance, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and all that kind of stuff, and perseverance and karma and all that, being in the right place at the right time, sticking with it, not giving up, being genuinely and sincerely dedicated to it in such a way, developing your talent, and not being lazy about it. You know what I mean? We were talking about singing the other night, myself and a friend of mine, and I was telling him, we just finished a gig together, and I said, "No, really, your voice is sounding much better." He had COVID, and he said, "I was feeling like I was losing some of my lung capacity and blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "But I actually now feel like I'm singing better." And I went, "Yeah, why do you think?" And he goes, "Well, I'm actually trying harder.
Right.
And I'm concentrating more." And I went, and that's what a good singer does.
Right.
A good singer tries harder to hit that note on pitch, to do that phrasing perfectly right, and whatever. That's what a good singer does. I hate lazy singers that, they don't hit the note exactly on pitch. They slur the words. Blah, 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 blah. They're singing like, it's like, yeah, that's not the way the song sounds, dude, whatever, but good effort, so that's what it takes, you know what I mean? And it's nice to get paid back for that somehow, and just go, wow, so many people, they like you, and to be a good person to work with. That's always an important thing that I tell younger guys. I mentor a couple of younger musicians and stuff. And it's always what's the secret of, becoming a popular, famous musician or a successful musician? And I always tell them, be the guy that is not a pain in the ass. Because especially, right? Especially if you're going to work with older artists who have been there and done that, and they just want to go out there, sing their songs, get paid, and get home, or whatever. They don't want a big pain to do that. They want to work with the easiest guys to work with, who they get along well with, and they're going to go next time it's time to do it again. And they go, who should we get for whatever, guitar? Or how about that guy? Because he was easy to work with.
Yeah. Now, I was asking this earlier, but I'll ask it again. It's like, do you mingle with any of these guys? It doesn't have to be just the Turtles guys off stage and just personally and stuff. Oh, okay. So you have developed friendships with a lot of these people.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you some funny stuff. But first, I'll just finish that. Last thought was, besides being the guy who's easy to work with, and be a good player and singer as well, that's 2 feathers in your cap. Then they're going to go, hey, that guy's easy to work with, and he's good.
Yeah.
So now you got 2 ways to kind of please and get the gig when they're looking for somebody. So Mark Volman and I have a relationship that we're usually the first ones up on the tour bus in the morning. Or usually it's me, and then he'll come out. I'll come out. I'll make the coffee, And then I'll be sitting there drinking my coffee, and he'll come out and he'll plop down next to me. And he just looks over at me with that look. And I go, "Want a cup of coffee?" And he'll just go, "I would love a cup of coffee." And okay.
I thought you'd never
And I get
ask.
up, and I make him a cup of coffee, just a little bit of whatever in there, Splenda, whatever, and some cream. And yeah. And I give it to him. Watch it now. And we're on the bus, we're rolling down the highway. Watch it now. And he takes it, and he manages to take the first sip, and he'll just go, great.
That must
And
be
then
fun.
it's quiet in the morning. We're
Yeah.
both kind of sitting there taking in the day, and looking out the windows and whatever, and just moment of coolness hanging out. And we'll talk to each other on the phone the rest of the year. And he'll just call and go, "Hey, I was just thinking about you. My God, I'm thinking about what it's going to be like having that morning coffee, and and I'm looking so forward to that morning coffee on the bus." So certain situations that I have relationships like that.
Cool.
With Entwistle, he lived in this 50-room castle
I think I heard that.
in Gloucestershire, in England, in the Cotswolds. And if you saw the movie The Kids Are All Right, was like a concert movie, a little bit of a biopic or whatever. And there's a scene where he's going down his staircase in his home, and there's all these guitars, canisters, and then he goes out back and he's shooting gold records with, first he's got like a rifle and he's going pull, and then bam,
right.
Finally,
I love that movie.
he opens the guitar case and he pulls out a Tommy gun.
Yeah.
So that's the place. I lived there for months on end.
Cool.
We would go over there to record, or we'd go over there to rehearse, to write, whatever. We were, I was in a band with him for almost 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, when it wasn't cool to be touring, we'd go over there and we'd work on recording projects or whatever else, or rehearsing new material for the next tour or whatever. And I lived in that house, and there were 50 rooms, all these beautiful bedroom suites with different themes, and we all had a favorite one. I liked the one that had the shower in it, because the rest of them only had bath whatever, with the little nozzle things that you got to hold over your head. So I would get the one with the shower. He would roll a TV into the room for me with a video recorder, so that I could watch some stuff going to sleep, because I needed to watch TV to go to sleep to at night or whatever. And I mean, the window in my bedroom was like a huge bay window that looked out onto, just as far as the eye can see, rolling hills of green,
Wow.
And I used to just wake up and go to that window and go, wow, what do I need to be a rock star for?
Yeah.
I live here. I already live here, whatever, so that's kind of how I felt at the time. Like, I've been there so much that I got to enjoy some of that, success, like, and we got along very well, him and I. We got along very well. We made each other laugh all the time. So I was one of those guys to him that was easy to tour with, and I could sing and play all his music the way he liked it.
He had a very droll sense of humor, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't always get that when you watch The Who. It's because he's just standing there, kind of motionless, and he doesn't sing all that much, except for maybe like the quiet one where he says, "I only have 2 words for you," But anyway, but in general, you kind of kept in the background. But when you really research The Who, it's like he had a really great sense of humor about things.
He had a very good sense of humor, and I used to pull all kinds of pranks on him at his home, and then he would return the favor by doing something to me in the house, whatever. And it was a pretty fun was a pretty fun relationship, and he would come to me to talk about serious things that he was having trouble with, and whatever, his relationships or with himself or whatever. So it was a good, we had a good rapport.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but I had a couple more questions before we wrap it up. Now, during the pandemic time, for the big time you were at home, as it were, probably a year and a half. I mean, Ron Dante, when we interviewed him, he said, I still kept singing. I still kept practicing and everything like that, just to keep the vocal cords in shape and everything. Did you do the same as a guitarist, or you just kind of took off time?
Yeah, well, I do that anyway, as you can see.
Yeah.
Right? There's guitars hanging all around this room. Around this room, there's another.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this in a minute.
And there's more over there, and there's another 2 or 3 in the living room, and there's one in the stairway, and there's one at the top of the stairway. There's 2 in my bedroom. There's 2 in the guest bedroom. So there's always guitars everywhere. And I try to keep the house either humidified to the point where they can stay healthy, because guitars need a certain amount of humidity or whatever. Right. And the thing is, when you're laying there watching a movie on the couch, but while you're laying there, your eyes keep wandering off to the beautiful Gibson J200 jumbo acoustic you got next to the TV, or it looks over at the Gibson double neck you got on the other side of the TV. You want to get up and just pick them up and sit back down and play them. So I keep a lot of my guitars out in the open, so that they can be played constantly. And I have something, I'm attracted to the look of them, so they kind of entice you, like they're calling you in, like, oh man, look how cool that guitar looks. I want to play it,
Right.
So I did a lot of playing. I built a new system for my studio. I have like a little recording studio here, and I do most of my recording directly. In other words, instead of miking amps and stuff like that, I have a few modules and things where keyboard parts and guitar parts I can record directly into my computer. So I'm running some new programs and things like Pro Tools, which I never used before. I used to use a different program, and so I've got to get some knowledge on them or whatever, because I have about 3 albums worth of material that I still want to get recorded before I can't anymore.
Right.
So yeah.
So my next question is, so I'm seeing the guitars there. They have like little piece of white paper. What is that? Is that a description of the guitar, a set list? What are those? Can you?
No, in other words, the ones that have the papers on front of them are guitars that I built from parts.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, with Fenders, you can do that pretty easily because the necks are usually bolted on and all the parts come off. You know what I mean? You can't do it as easily with a Gibson Les Paul or something, because it's a one-piece body. And, maybe you could change the pickups out and some of the electronics or whatever, but you pretty much, the body and the neck are one piece. But with Fenders, you can swap out the bodies and stuff. So one of the things that I admired about Entwistle was that he had a collection, maybe he had 225 guitars like that, and only his were all vintage. And they were all, back in the 50s and 60s, they used the same paint as they used in the old cars, like DuPont and GM, all those, and all the colors were the same. So all the old cars, they made guitars that were those same colors, you know what I mean? Like Burgundy Mist, Shoreline Gold, Inca Silver, Lake Placid Blue, all the old Chevys and Cadillacs and whatever were all these custom colors. And Entwistle had sets of vintage, like a precision bass, a jazz bass, a Fender Telecaster, a Fender Stratocaster, all in Shoreline Gold, and then he had a set of them in Lake Placid Blue, and he had a set of them in Dakota Red or whatever. And I kind of picked up that thing from him. It's kind of a Libra thing. He's a Libra, I'm a Libra, but you want, if you like something, you want it in every color.
Right.
You like what it is, but now let's have the same thing, but in every color that there is available. So that's kind of what I do with a lot of these guitars. But of course, they have different pickups in them that are good for one job or another. The necks have different size frets on them, or the neck is width. The thickness of the neck is a little different. And so I go on eBay or places like that, and I buy the parts. And I put together, oh yeah, I really want, blah, blah, blah. Like say this guitar right here, for instance.
Yeah.
So this is a rosewood neck. This is an Olympic white body. And it's sort of like fashioned after like a Jeff Beck Strat that he used on the Wired album or whatever. On the cover of the Wired album, he's playing this white Strat with a rosewood neck. And I bought one years ago from a music store, and it got stolen from me before I even got it home. And so for years I was, kind of bummed out about that. And I said, dude, just build yourself another one. Buy the neck, buy the parts, so I built myself a Jeff Beck Strat. So for $700 or whatever, you know what I mean?
Now, when you're on tour, do you lug your own equipment, or do you have just handlers? You send them some guitars and they take them from city to city, or how does it work?
No, usually what I would do is like for a simple tour like the Happy Together tour, which is pretty much I just need to bring 2 instruments.
Okay.
So I have like a double gig bag that holds two guitars. I put it on my shoulders. I don't like shipping guitar or putting guitars in with the cargo, like with like luggage or suitcases or whatever, like watching it wave by to it on the baggage, thing when you're checking in, because you're not guaranteed that's going to get to the other side like you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not guaranteed you're going to get to the other side, let alone something that you're watching go off into the distance. I've gone to gigs where my luggage didn't show up, you know what I mean?
But you have your guitar.
If I'm able to take the guitar on the plane with me, I know if I'm getting there, my guitar is getting there.
That's cool. Okay.
Put it in the overhead, put it in the closet or whatever. Sometimes they let you do that. Of course, the equipment that we use on stage, all the amps and keyboards and drums and all that, that's all backline rental that we rent for the whole summer.
Yeah.
And it travels in a trailer on the back of one of the tour buses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Everybody does a little bit differently, so I was curious how you do it.
I mean, if you're on a real major tour, I'm sure the guys that work with McCartney, they fly, what they call a guitar coffin, which is the size of, a dining room table filled with guitars, and that just gets shipped cargo off to wherever, you know what I mean? It goes on a truck, Yeah.
Let's see. So at this point, what tours are you currently on, and what are coming back if they haven't started yet again?
Yeah, well, the Yardbirds, we've had a little bit of a problem with the Yardbirds with canceling dates and stuff like that, and we need to get back into the swing of it. And the pandemic certainly hasn't helped situations. And our lead singer, John Iden, lives in Germany. Jim lives in France. We have a harp player who lives in Jersey, and our bass player lives in Pennsylvania, and I'm here in New York. And our crew, some of them are out in California, one's up in Rhode Island, so it's like getting all of it together, worked out, is not hard, but we've had to cancel a few dates and a few little mini tours and stuff like that. So we're rescheduling everything, and we're going to come back probably March by, it's called a Flower Power Cruise. And it's like a 60s, pop and rock cruise, and it's us and about 50 other acts or whatever that are on there for a whole week. It's going to be a lot of good acts on there. And so we'll do 2 shows on that cruise during that week. And then we'll probably arrange for a half dozen other shows around that when we get off the cruise or before we go on the cruise, to kind of, again, make it cost effective to fly people over from Europe and get a bunch of dates booked, and then I'll do some more touring with them around the end of May, which is going into Happy Together time. I'll probably have to go right from our last show with the Yardbirds to the first show with Happy Together. So kind of a hit the ground running summer for the next year.
And that was a question I also had. Do you ever overlap on these things, or you try to schedule it this tour, then this tour?
Well, there's been times when that has happened. You know what I mean? I had to put together a second band to do Hippie Fest.
Yeah.
Because we were still doing Hippie Fest dates, and then Happy Together started happening. And the next summer they were overlapping. So I put together a second band to play the Hippie Fest dates. We had Rick Derringer, Dave Mason, Gary Wright, Felix Cavalieri. These were on Hippie Fest, and my son was on that tour. He plays bass and sings very well and plays keyboards, but he was on that tour with Mickey Dolenz's guy. Wayne Avers was the guitar player singer on that tour. And so we would jump off Hippie Fest, do Happy Together dates, and then jump off Happy Together and do Hippie Fest dates, kind of jumping back and forth,
Now, do you still do Hippie Fest, or is that kind of?
No,
Okay.
I mean, the last couple of years they did it. They tried to get it happening, and it just never really took off the same way, They named it they tried to give it different names, Blues Rock Festival or whatever, and it just never really took off. And they had bands like Savoy Brown and Edgar Winter and stuff like that. I mean, they're good bands, and they're definitely a part of music history and all that kind of stuff, but they're not going to draw the same crowds, like the Monkees and the Turtles and Cowsills and the Association, and you stick that bunch of people together and you got yourself a full auditorium,
Right. Now, do you still tour with Alan Parsons? I thought you were, at least.
No, we were. We had toured from probably 2003 to about 2011.
Oh, okay. So
we were his band for about 8 years.
Okay.
And then, of course, he wanted to slow things down for himself. He wanted to kind of do a semi-retired thing. And he pretty much told us, guys, I'm not going to be able to probably provide you with enough work after this year. So maybe, I'm just going to give you a heads up to start looking for other things, and that was when Happy Together kind of started, and so it was like, okay, well, we got it. We got a whole summer of, 50 something shows. That's what we would do in a year with Alan Parsons.
It's mainly now Happy Together and Yardbirds.
Yeah, for me anyway. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Any other plans for any other groups, or do you know?
I'm kind of working with some younger guys, some 2 very gifted musicians. This one guy, Ben, is a really amazing guitar player, like Eric Johnson meets Joe Bonamassa. He's like amazing player, and I just would love to try to help him find a vehicle for that talent, because so many players get forgotten by the wayside just because they had nothing to get them somewhere. So he needs a good band to work with. He needs good songs, good songwriting and whatever, and connections and whatever else. And I'm trying to help him develop that, And then there's another guy who is a younger guy. He's 30, but he plays everything. He can play any song on any instrument. And he's very ambitious. He's really smart. He's really into the whole marketing end of things because he worked for a company doing that for years. And now he wants to kind of give it up and go into music and see how he can do with that. So he plays a lot with me. We do I was doing a solo acoustic thing, playing locally and around wineries and things like that. And I brought him on. So we're like a duo now. So the both of us have been doing that for a couple of years together. And he's going to be here helping me with my songwriting and my recording stuff and live streaming and things like that or whatever. So those are projects that I really am looking forward to. I feel like I've done not enough, but I've done a whole lot of playing other people's music, Right. And I only have one album out, a CD of my instrumental guitar stuff. And I have about 3 more albums worth of material that are up in the noggin.
Very cool.
And I have lots of demos and whatever, and just from my own head, even just to get them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Just another sense of fulfillment. That's the creative thing. Is half of the fun is creating the thing, and the other half of the fun is going, hey, listen to what I created, and people going, ooh,
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So that's the thing,
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, very good. I don't really have any more questions, so I always leave the little end part of the show to just kind of say, if anybody wants to reach out to you, or if you have a website or a book or an album to plug, anything you'd like to say.
Well, I have my CD that you can get. You can download it from iTunes, or it's probably on Spotify, Amazon. You can get hard copies of the CD, which is called Easy Journey to Other Planets. And the title comes from a paperback book about Eastern philosophy that I read when I was in high school, or actually right out of high school. I got into Eastern philosophy, and it's just an instrumental guitar album, kind of like Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow, or like that. And the styles on the album kind of change a little bit here and there, but it's really a lot of my favorite guitar players that I'm kind of emulating, like a Jeff Beck kind of thing, and then a Clapton kind of thing, or a David Gilmour kind of thing, or Robin Trower, or like all the guys that I grew up listening to and learning how to play by listening to.
But it's all your own compositions, right?
Oh, it's all my own stuff. Yeah. It's all my own instrumental stuff. But there'll be more stuff coming out soon. And I have a website. It's kind of ancient. It's just godfreytownsend.com or godfreytownsendmusic.com. They'll both take it to the same place. I have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook fan page. And that's really all I can say.
All right.
As far as that goes, yeah.
Well, very cool. I want to thank you, Godfrey, for joining me today. You gave me some good information about the Turtles and other stuff you've done over the years. And I hope when you're touring around with Happy Together, or especially the Yardbirds, because I haven't seen them, I need to. And hopefully you'll come around to the West Coast and I'll get to see it.
Yeah, we've done Portland. Where is that?
That's about an hour drive north.
Yeah.
Hour or two. So it's not too far.
Yeah, we do that side of the world as well.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you again. And here we are at the end of another Fun Ideas podcast. So we'll
I had
see
a
you
good
soon.
time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.